I appreciate y'all coming out today and to really hear about a project that I think is going to be unique for Central Arkansas and this state and really this nation. I have a great friend named Haskell Dickinson, and if you know Haskell, you know that he is the ultimate honest person and oftentimes the ultra contrarian. And Haskell sent me one day that said, you know, this really isn't a wetlands. And I said, okay, it really isn't a wetlands because it is relatively small. And if you really want to talk about what a wetlands does, it ought to be able to clean and purify the water that's discharged into it. And unfortunately, the volume of water that goes into this repository versus the area that's there, then technically speaking, it will never be big enough to clean that water so that when it's discharged into the Arkansas River, it's gotten rid of all the things that pollute the river. But it is a great site to show the people of this city why it's important to conserve and take care of things. And if you really want to say, why spend $2.2 million, Eric? Then there's lots of different reasons. One reason is that one thing I've learned from Jim Lawson, one of the people that used to work for the city when we started planning things, is that if you want people to come to an area, you have to have multiple opportunities for different people to come for different reasons, density and diversity. And this adds a different dimension for different people to come. It is a very unusual area once you get out in there. And Mark's right, yesterday we did see, almost on call, two big birds going honk, 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 and the big Canadians landed right in the middle of the area. And a blue herring and turtles, and there's all sorts of things when you go out there that you can see and experience. And the way that Mark and Martin and all the people that have worked on this have designed it is that part of the area you can go into and part of the area you can view, so we can leave it natural for people to watch birds and plants and animals without being disturbed. So one reason for doing this is that it adds a different area for people to come to. If you look at parks, there are two different types of parks. There are passive and active parks. And the Clinton Park is really a passive park. It's an area for walking and doing things like that. But if you really want people to come, they have to have some activity. And this adds that. Secondly, what this park is going to do is be an educational opportunity for people to see not one wetlands, but three wetlands. One wetland will be the majority of what's in the park. Two other demonstration wetlands for different types of areas that are in this state will be present. So we will be able to take young people that just walked by here or at the Nature Center, and they'll be able to go out and learn about what wetlands are and what they do and what they should do and why they should be preserved. And it'll be a great opportunity that goes along with the Nature Center and Heifer and what this institution has been doing for the whole time. And lastly, and in many ways, to me is important, it honors one of the true great people that have lived in this state, Bill Clark. Bill Clark was all of our friends, or many people here's friend. And Bill Clark was one of these people that was just bigger than life. He never said no. Or if he did say no, he told you right at the very start that he said no, and it never was a question of what he wanted to do. But if you said to Bill, I need something, this needs to be done, he just said, where do I send the check? What do I do? How do I help fundraise? So if you look at the second addition to Heifer, Bill Clark did that. If you look at the third floor of the River Market, Bill Clark did that. If you look at every organization of this town that needed help fundraising, Bill and Margaret Clark did that. He loved the outdoors, he loved hunting, he loved fishing, and there could not be a better tribute than a Wetlands that has his name on it. So those are just some of the general ideas about this. I'm going to ask, there's three other people who really know a lot more about this than I do. I just get some crazy ideas, and then there's all these wonderful people that carry through on them. I'm going to have first Mark Webb come up, who's with the Parks Department, who's been part of this project from the very start, and then Eric Perry, who's going to really be in charge of it and tell you about the planning and when it's going to be done and how it's going to be done. And then lastly, Martin Smith, who is a landscape architect who specializes in this sort of project, restoration projects, talk about what's going in there and the schedule and that sort of thing and what it will offer people as educational opportunities. Mark?
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for showing up. Dean, thank you for leading us in this direction. This is something that's very passionate to me, to give people of Arkansas and those that visit us a chance to see what it's like to, try to mitigate some of the impacts we make on our environment, the places we live in. One of the things that always takes a whole lot of consideration is this kind of stuff, and we didn't do this alone. We had Brian Vinci and Joseph Hankins from the Freshwater Institute. We had the Nature Conservancy. We had Arkansas Game and Fish. Who else was out there? There was somebody else. I'm missing somebody, but it's incredible that all these people could come together to understand the fluctuations of the floods on the Arkansas River. How does this impact this environment? What about this 30-acre watershed that flows into this area? There's a number of things that we had to reconcile, and I thank God that we have all these wonderful people that were on our team to bring this forward. And I'm also thankful that I'm working for Parks and Recreation and we can do these kind of things for the city of Little Rock.
Hey, good afternoon. My name's Eric Petty. I'm with the Little Rock Public Works Department. I was asked to assist the Parks Department and other agencies as kind of coordinating this project. So I kind of want to mention some of the different members that's assisting with this project, as well as a timeline for the project and where the funding came from. On the funding, $400,000 of the money came from the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, and that's to build habitat. This site is actually located right adjacent to, just on the other side of the bridge, is the Nature Center, the new Game and Fish Nature Center. So you can learn a lot of educational things inside the Nature Center and then come outside and see a lot of the actual things you've seen inside the Nature Center right outside in nature. There was also $353,000 came from the Arkansas Natural Resource Commission as a pass-through from the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. This $353,000 is to go to build a litter trap that will catch a lot of the debris and litter that comes through a box culvert that dumps into this area to help clean it up, all the trash that comes through the downtown area through our storm drainage system. It also pays for a lift station to lift water from a lower level down at the river and take it to a raised pond, and that water will then fall down a waterfall back down to the lower level where the Arkansas River is. And a maintenance road to go down and help maintain the wetland site. So that $353,000 was really critical to help kick this project off. There was also a $500,000 grant from the Clinton Foundation towards the project, and that was a big help. The other funds is $100,000 from One Bank and Trust, just as a donation to the project, and $675,000 was given to the project in the name of Bill Clark for the wetlands. So the total funds available is about $2,028,000, and we will probably need every bit of that to complete this job and do the best amount of landscaping we can near the end of the project. Those working on it, the civil engineer for the project is USI Engineering. They're located right here in downtown Little Rock. Vernon Williams, he's our engineer that did the design of the project, the boardwalk. There's two different phases of construction. With the ANRC money, the $353,000, we have Hipskin Excavating. They're out of Benton. They're going to handle the construction of the items with the ARRA money. The Phase 2 construction contractor is Township Builders. It's about a $1.4 million project. It'll do all the boardwalk, a lot of the grading, and then it'll turn it over to our landscape architect and landscape contractor. Our landscape architect is Martin Smith with Ecological Design Group. He's going to come up here in just a minute and speak about the actual habitat that he's got planned for this project. We're currently planning on the 17th of this month. Around May 17th, we should start construction. That, of course, is dependent on weather and the elevation of the river. Throughout construction, the elevation of the Arkansas River is going to have a lot to do with the timeline of construction, because a lot of the work for the project is below the Arkansas River elevation. There's underwater channels. There's a lot of piling to hold up the boardwalk, as well as the lift station. We are hoping to have the majority of the construction completed by the end of the year, weather related, but there is a possibility some of the landscaping may have to wait till the spring of next year. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Martin Smith, who drew our beautiful renderings here, and he can talk a little more about the habitat. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I'm going to talk about the ecology of the system a little bit, and I'd be happy to take questions also, because this is an extremely complicated system. And what Eric mentioned just a few minutes ago, that the height of the Arkansas River drives everything here. There's the fluctuations, especially over the past 2 years. You know, you really can see that it has a profound effect on the type of vegetation that can live in this type of system. The best way to explore this is to go up the river or down the river and find similar sandbar habitats. Look at different plant species that are growing and living there, and actually Theo Witzel and myself went up about a mile on a sandbar habitat, similar elevations, and collected seed from hibiscus laevis and switchgrass, which would be genetically inclined to the high fluctuations of the river. Honestly, there's probably 5 species that would have a fighting chance to live in the lower wetland, the one that's going to be more natural, like a sandbar habitat. And by collecting these 2 species and growing them and introducing them here, gives us a chance to recreate a similar type of system. Now, another thing on the lower habitat, we're really going to have to look at floating mat aquatic vegetation. And this basically means that with the river fluctuations, the mats are able to float up with the water elevation and come back down. Problem with aquatic vegetation in a fluctuating system is that during the spring, when the plant material is really in an active growth period, and the water level comes up and stays above for 2-3 weeks before it actually drops back down, the lack of the sunlight, and just basically starves those plants of the oxygen and light they need to actually survive. So it's really going to be a challenge as far as, and it's going to take time to really start to evolve plant material in that lower wetland. Now, the upper wetland is set at an elevation that is above the, the average fluctuations of the river. It could be breached, on very, very, very large events. But so in that area, which is more of the teaching wetland, we're able to introduce more native aquatic vegetation that's found throughout the state. And this is where we see taking the children and the public can visit and see, because we'll be able to add, we'll probably have 25 species or so of different aquatic vegetation and probably 5, 6 different types of trees, using some aquatic tupelo and cypress that you would find normally, not normally on this type of wetland, as Dean mentioned before. You know, it's really for education. If you wanted it to be a natural system the way it is, honestly, they're not that, a sandbar habitat's not that pretty, you know, and it's because of the fluctuation of the river, the river water. Now, another quick thing that was mentioned, a big aspect of it is this channel that comes in. So we're looking, the river's running down, so that we have this back channel. So the habitat, the aquatic life, is able to come up into this area, monitoring the different aquatic and terrestrial life over this, say, the span of the whole history of the system. But just early on, when it's complete, and watching it over 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you'll be amazed if someone's actually documenting what is starting to, I guess, call this home. And then also using it as breeding grounds, a lot of the aquatic vegetation, fishes, and of course your turtles, and I mean, it's perfect breeding ground, and then they move on down the river. So has a very important impact to this community and to the educational aspect that it has the ability to provide. And you know, I could really talk about this stuff all day long, but I won't. And I would be happy to take questions, because there's several, you know, I'm sure there's many questions regarding this. So if anyone would like to ask a question, I'd be happy to answer it best I can. Well, that's the question was, how long is it going to take to complete the project? And with the fluctuations of the river, you have absolutely no idea. I mean, starting May 17th gives us our best shot. You know, you look at the last 2 years. If we would have started it 2 years ago, we may still be working on it. I mean, because it's just, there's some things you just cannot do when the river stays up at the level, at some of the levels it has. But starting the project now and going into the summer months, should be able to get into some earthwork and some of the major infrastructure pieces that we need. And the vegetation, I could tell you, it may take 10 years to complete that, because, I mean, just because it's going to be you have to really take time and do it right, and using genetically inclined species of plants that are up and down the Arkansas River is going to give us our best chance. So,
Can we?
I'm going to step away from the mic for a minute.
Okay.
The lower wetlands really probably 80% of the area out there, and it's a sandbar habitat. And the upper wetland will come off, and it's this. I guess it would be the southeast corner. It's going to be built up so that we can actually bring in some more, I guess, more species that are native to different types of wetlands within the state, and not just the sandbar habitat, and have more educational opportunities there. It's hard to tell here, but really look at all of this area, or let me do this right. And the design, these are 2007 designs, obviously with funds and things, you know, there's different alterations, but this is the upper wetland. I think it's a little bit smaller than what's shown. It's in this area, and this would be your lower wetland, sandbar habitat.
I'm sure you probably have handicap accessibility. Will there be places for people, like, you know, that
The question was handicap accessibility. The entire system is originally designed to be handicap accessible. There's a quicker access to go down steps to get to, you know, I don't know if these are necessarily be pavilions, but there will at least be an overlook. But the grades of the design allowed, you know, they can go down. It's a longer route, but it's the only way to climb that far in that vertical distance. Yes. Go ahead. Hi.
In looking at the schematic here, the drawing below on the left easel.
This section.
Hello?
Thank you very much. I thought you said that the wetlands was below the river level, average river level.
No, it's not. It's that revetment, actually, it may raise a little bit slower than the river because all that water has to purge through that stone, but it generally acts the same as Arkansas River.
Well, I noticed some elevations that looked like elevations, like 240 plus feet, some markings on the scale there somewhere, I don't know where it was. But anyway, the question, I guess, is that I recall so vividly 1988 or 1989 when we had the huge rise in the river. It went over the tops of the dams. What do you think the impact of that would be if it were to happen again?
The boardwalk systems are designed and going to be built with the obvious that we even studied how long the water would be up and what elevation. So they're going to be underwater for a period of time. You're just going to have to close off the trail. Now the upper wetland, it's designed to where, if that type of event, a 100-year event, storm event comes, more than likely it will top. Now, we designed the system, we didn't do the engineering on the system, so I could be misspeaking slightly, but it could, if it's going to get up above the levee, obviously it's going to get, what can we've got a lot of problems if you have a 100-year storm event, and there's a chance that it would fill up with the rock revetment. It actually allows the channelization to stay out into the river, and it's not going to scour through here. If it tops that levee, that's a whole other story. If it tops the revetment levee, but the revetment levee was set, elevation by the Corps of Engineers, so that's an elevation that we're working off of. Somebody wants to answer that question.
Henry, the north levee is, if you go down and you run the north levee all the way down, that's the levee that was put in by the Corps for the channel. So it is at or higher than the 100-year floodplain. Isn't that right, Eric? So the chance, if something happens there, then, I know. But it was built to not happen that way. The reason there's a break when you come west is when they put the bridge across there, that's what they did. So it's created these funny biohabitats. The game and fish, when they get ready, when Neil gets ready to do his, what he'll be able to do is go down in that other little horseshoe that's down there and have a fishing area and another area that you can look at. But the original opening for this was supposed to be at the west part of this, and they were going to put two big culverts in there to just let water flow through there. Well, what was going to happen is every spring what was going to happen is that everything that Martin put in was going to be at the airport growing. I mean, literally. So we came back with these people from West Virginia, and if you look at this part right here, this is dirt. This is true land. You get back here, and this, at one point in time, Steve can tell you, the city had this great idea that they were going to come out here and put this and fill this in with dirt and put buildings back here. So what they did, if you walk back here, it is full of old concrete, rebar, and things like that. There is a pipe that goes through here that's supposed to take water out. So what we're doing is we're creating a spillway right here that's at the normal level of the river, so that when water flows, instead of it scouring this way, it has to passively come back up this way. And so the interesting thing about this is that property, and we'll be able, because we have a pump here that brings things up to this wetland in the middle of the summer to have water in here, which again will not be 100% natural, but it will keep the Game and Fish Commission. I mean, you have to understand how many bat boxes we put out here. But how many? We put $60,000 worth of, $45,000 worth of bat boxes out here. The Game and Fish Commission, as part of their contribution to helping with this, we're going to channelize this so you'll be able to come out here and you'll be able to look in here and see fish. And what Martin is saying is, as those turtles and fish and things start populating this, you'll be able to come out here to one of these two pavilions or platforms and watch and see what's going on. But you'll be able to do it because this is going to passively fill back this way. So the chances of us having a true catastrophe, it's like everything else. If there's a 110-year flood, then, you can't, that's it. But barring that, we ought to be in a good position that this over time will mature. And I think Martin's right. We're going to get this work done probably this summer. How well he's able to plant is going to depend on how soon we get through and the time of the year, and it will be an ongoing process. And so that's what will be interesting about it.
Hear me? All right. Testing. All right, there we go. My name is Patrick. I'm a student here at the Clinton School. So this is really exciting for me to see this develop. I want to say thank you. I appreciate you explaining the fact that when you're introducing or reintroducing a biome, it's not something that happens overnight. It's not just landscaping. But I have two questions for you. As you were introducing these new plant species to make the wetlands, have you assessed the risk of species becoming invasive? Because I see it's right next to, or at least the part I'm looking at here is right next to some pretty well-managed land already. So have you assessed that? And if you have, what other, or can you talk more about how you plan to perform ongoing management of the wetlands?
Excellent questions. First, on the material, first of all, this entire wetland is taken over by alligator weed, which is one of our most invasive exotic plants that's choking our wetlands out today. So there's quite a bit of an eradication part that has to take place. It's nearly impossible to get rid of any piece of. The problem with alligator weed is coming on, if it gets on a boat motor or anything, a little piece of it and goes to another body of water, it just takes off. But it's here, and you'll find it all through all of our bodies of water in Arkansas. So introducing, it's funny because one thing we want to do, we almost have to introduce native invasives to be able to handle the conditions in a way. So, they will not populate into the Clinton grounds simply because that's not their natural habitat. If the irrigation system is running constantly where it stays wet and everything, you could start to see some of those different species. The interesting thing about these type of native plants, the seed is in the ground in a lot of places. It's not until the environmental conditions, and they may lay there for hundreds of years, thousands of years, dormant. It's not until the actual conditions meet, it before it may actually germinate and grow. So our goal is to find plants that we can put in their natural habitat as much as possible. We still can't do that. We can get them close, and then you're going to watch it evolve. The plants will evolve into these areas. And the second part of the question was, how did maintenance and if we do our job right and we get the plants in the right place, they're in a self-sustaining mode. They're in an actual aquatic system that they would grow in naturally. A problem with a lot of our landscapes, and you say just a landscape, like a commercial landscape or something, I always talk about it as being, I feel like, and we're bad as landscape architects of the profession, we put plants on basically a drip IV system that's managed by human, by man. I mean, we put plants we take plants that are tough enough to live in a situation, but then we fertilize them, we put pesticides, we water them. I mean, we do everything just to keep that plant alive. So our whole philosophy is to take plants that are acclimated to a situation and let them self-sustain by themselves. It's very complicated, but it can be achieved, and it's very successful when it is.
This might be a question for Arkansas Game and Fish, but are you planning on keeping it a natural ecosystem in terms of animals, or are you planning on keeping things like snake and alligator gar out of the environment?
I don't know what type of man.
No, if it wants to live here, it can live here. I mean, basically, we want, isn't that right, Neil? We want whatever is supposed to be there all the time. And so we're not going to capture predators. We're not going to get rid of snakes. I mean, it's going to be a habitat where if you're down there, the mayor wants to have a snake killed, but other than that, we're not going to do anything. Not really. He called me, kidding me about that this weekend. But no, whatever is there is going to be there. We're going to try to create a habitat where what would normally be there is there. We have one of Mark's people that works for Mark, as we talk about the river, what he says all the time is that is the highway for critters to move up and down the river. And it really is. They move along the bank from place to place, and we're just going to make an inviting place for them to stay. And that's what we hope people come out and see. I mean, you would like to have everybody in Arkansas take a period of time and go out and really with Martin and Theo Witzel and the Game and Fish, to places where you have to go rough and do it. But no one's going to do that. I mean, people aren't going to do it. So if we can bring things in and educate people, that's what we're going to try to do. And I want Eric to come up and talk about one other thing that we're doing to try to educate people. He mentioned in his talk that we're going to capture everything that comes out. There is how tall is that culvert? So it's a 8-foot culvert there that's 3 feet wide that drains 30 acres. And if you look in there right now, it looks like a styrofoam jungle in there. And they've devised a system of capturing it, and we're going to take every day and put that right there and say, as you throw your cigarette butt or your paper cup 5 blocks from here, this is where it comes out, and this is what it's doing. But tell them about what you're going to do.
Okay. Located right here off of the largest pavilion, there's a box culvert comes out that does drain a lot of the downtown area, and it dumps all the trash, litter. There's actually right now just floating islands of styrofoam cups out there. And we're going to place a litter trap that's actually going to float in front of this box culvert. So as the Arkansas River rises 3 foot, 5 foot, 7 foot, however far the river rises, this litter trap is going to float with it. It'll go up and down as the Arkansas River rises. And then there will be a little walkway platform where a person can walk out on it and actually dip out all the trash and trying to keep it out of here. But it is going to be visible, right, and it'll be right beside this pavilion as an educational tool so you can see what happens when downtown or urban areas, all the trash and litter that comes into the natural ecosystems.
Any more questions?
Actually, I just have a comment. I just want to say I'm just so excited about what you're doing here. It's amazing what's going on in this part of town in terms of educational opportunities and preservation, which, 20 years ago, it was all about privatization and commercialization. But this is going to be real public space, community space, educational, and it goes along so well with the train bridge restoration that's planned, and with Heifer, and with the Nature Museum, and our community is just becoming more and more sustainable, more verdant, more green, and I'm just so excited, and I really want to thank all the people who had anything to do with this. I just think it's wonderful for our community.